Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. Of course, I am very close to the end of my videos about Friday the 13th, at least the movie reviews, maybe not future videos talking about future movies or games or anything like that. But I do have a final Friday to talk about. They say it's a Final Friday. It's also the, second to happen with the title The Final Friday, or The Final Chapter, or anything like that. This movie came out in 1993. It's directed and partially written by Adam Marcus, who was a friend of Sean S. Cunningham's son, I believe. And basically, he took over the job to, as a first-time filmmaker, make this new Friday the 13th movie. And Sean S. Cunningham, at some point, had decided he didn't want Jason around. He didn't want a hockey mask on Jason. He didn't want this. He didn't want that. It reminds me a lot of the Superman Returns fiasco, or whatever it was called, the Tim Burton Superman movie that was supposed to happen forever ago. Not the Brandon Routh Superman Returns. That was another catastrophe that we got. This movie is one that I used to see this cover all the time in the store when I was a kid. And I don't think I ever saw it until I was probably 12 or 13, and then I hated it deeply. It never came on TV, and there's good reason for that, because it's so fucking bad. It might possibly be the worst Friday the 13th. I still haven't decided, because of course I'm going to rank these at the end of my video reviews for these. But I have not decided what I hate more, this or Part 3. And that's going to be a very interesting hill to die on, because whichever one I pick is probably going to be the one I'm pretty militant about, and I'm not sure yet. Anyway, that movie is Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. They took The Final Friday off the DVD cover, but this is also an R-rated and unrated copy. I think I've only ever seen the unrated copy, but from what I understand, it just has extended gore. The one good thing about the entire movie, this is one of the worst taking a dumps on the franchise type of thing that I've ever seen in my life. Truly. Truly, I mean that. I love Friday the 13th. I've talked about that previously in almost all of these reviews about how I grew up on these movies. These were some of the earliest slashers I remember seeing alongside the original Halloween, and maybe even Halloween 2 when I saw that on AMC Horror Fest. Most of these Friday the 13th films my mom exposed me to through AMC Horror Fest years ago, and I have great fond memories for that. But this movie here, it is truly an especially bad movie. Now, understand the context of when this came out. This was 4 years after Part 8. Part 8 had a negative connotation to it already because of the weird-ass ending at the end of that movie that a lot of fans hate. A lot of people hate that movie in general. I don't understand the entirety of the hate. I get the entirety of the hate. I'm a matter of fact part of the hate for this movie. But Part 8, not so much. Part 8 is a very mediocre movie, a very messy movie, if you will. But to go from 4 years after that movie and how Paramount finally sold off the rights to New Line Cinema, who is the crafter of Freddy Krueger, you know, they were going to make like a Freddy vs. Jason film, and they were kind of stuck in like a loop, a hellhole, if you will, trying to develop that film. This film even teases that at one point in the end, but they were trying. And I assume the setup of Jason Goes to Hell was to help promote this Freddy vs. Jason in Hell thing. If you heard some of the old classic ideas for Freddy vs. Jason, it sounded kind of neat sometimes. I love the movie we got, but I would have liked some of those other ideas either as a sequel or as a possibility of another Timelines movie for Freddy vs. Jason. There's a lot of cool things we could have done with that. But Jason Goes to Hell was the first one that New Line Cinema put out after they had acquired the rights. That 4 years after Part 8, if I was a massive fan and alive back then, this came out a year before I was born, if I was around back then and this is the one that I saw, 4 years after my franchise hadn't really pumped out a movie in forever, I would have cried. I would have cried. Because this is awful. This is awful. And I used to love the poster, like I said. I used to love this artwork. I don't know what the fuck that thing is, but it's not in the movie. I mean, it's kind of a better looking version possibly of what's in the movie, but no, it's not in the movie. From the cover alone, and the title alone, Jason Goes to Hell, it's already clearly not going to be your typical Friday the 13th film. I think you could have seen the trailers for this movie and told that it wasn't going to be your typical Friday the 13th movie, being in the 1990s, this has some of the most low-grade, cheap feel to it. And I think a lot of that is a mixture of things between Adam Marcus being a first-time director and a shitty director on top of that, but also the horrible writing involved, the terrible music, some of the worst music ever. I think Harry Manfredini did not come back for this. I could be wrong about that. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Let me see if I can find out anything on the back of the box. Is Manfredini on this? I'm not seeing his name, guys. I'm not seeing his name. Good for him to get the hell away from this movie. I don't think he's on it. Maybe I can check on IMDb too. I know I'm in the middle of the review here, but yeah, maybe you give a shit, maybe you don't. Oh my god, he did do the music for this movie. Harry. You knew it was a lost cause, didn't you, Harry? Anyway, there's no one you really recognize in this film. John D. LeMay is in this, of course, from the Friday the 13th TV show, and people really like him. I don't really know much about him because I haven't seen that show that much, so I don't know a whole lot about it. I tried to watch it many, many years ago, but I thought it would be like a Jason show. I didn't know it'd be like an anthology show, but kind of like more in the vein of X-Files, but not really entirely anthological. It was more episodic, is what I'm trying to say. I didn't really know anything about the guy. I don't think he's horrible here, but he tries. His character just kind of is there in the midst of everything happening in this movie. Where do I even begin with this fucking turd? Basically, let me start off with the fact that the opening of the film is a setup like your typical Friday the 13th movie. There is a very hot agent of some sort, FBI, CIA, I don't know what she is, some kind of special ops chick who goes out in the woods by herself at Camp Crystal Lake, I assume. And while she's there, we see her get naked, go to take a shower, the power goes out, and then Jason comes after her. And then while he's coming after her, she runs away, and a big group of special ops agents show up and start going after him and shooting at him and blowing him up into tiny bits. They kill Jason in the first, 5 minutes of the movie. To be fair, that was a great opening. I really liked it. I really liked what we were doing with that. And I wish we had taken the movie into a direction people would not like, of just having Jason like a military base, very much like Jason X. I almost said SpaceX. That sounds like a weird title. It sounds like a porn title. Jason X had the whole trapped in a small spaceship type of thing with him hunting people down in there. I kind of would have liked to have seen this movie do that, but just ignore the title Jason Goes to Hell and not do it. The title alone spoils the end of the movie, just so you know. It's even more stupid. This film also wanted to tie to another franchise you might know called Evil Dead. They tried their best to tie it to things. The Necronomicon has an appearance in here. There's a lot of things in here that reference to that, and I hate that. I have some friends who love that idea, but I fucking hate it. I think it's awful. I think it's a bad idea, because then you're implying that Jason might be a Deadite, possibly. You're not saying it, but you're implying that, and I don't like implications like that on people who are just fucking zombies who murder people. That's all I want. That's all I want, you know, is just this guy to kill people. That's all I want. So this movie is very famous for not being your typical Friday the 13th slasher, mainly because Jason isn't walking around with a machete or a weapon or anything in the woods attacking people. No, his body and his body parts get taken to an autopsy, and the coroner that is looking at his dead body goes to mess with his heart, like Jason's heart, and it starts beating again. It freaks him out, and then in that moment of being freaked out, it's like, it's not possession, but like he becomes in love with Jason's heart. And he picks it up and eats it. Yeah. Yeah. He eats Jason's heart. And then he becomes possessed by the spirit of fucking Jason Voorhees. And then this movie becomes a body hop movie, where you don't know who might be the thing, you know? As in like the John Carpenter The Thing. Everybody's jumping around. Some characters don't know. We typically know because everybody just stops speaking. They stop doing things. And then it doesn't make any sense because some people who get possessed by Jason can talk. Some don't. And why? Why? The film sets up all these little subplots and side stories and shit that just make it worse and worse. For example, one of the big ones here is a character that we follow about halfway through the film. We find out that Jason has a half-sister. Mainly because we follow a guy who's a bounty hunter named Creighton Duke, I think is his name. I can't fucking stand it. It's not the actor's fault. The actor is good. He tries his best to do something special with the movie. I think he tries. He's not bad. It's the writing. It's Creighton Duke as a character. He tracks down Jason's sister, talks to her about how You know, I understand what happened with you and your mom and blah, 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 and Jason, blah, blah, blah. She doesn't want anything to do with it. She has a daughter and a granddaughter as well, and they are the only Voorhees relatives left, and eventually Jason goes after them in body hopping mode. Now, the body hop thing, to me, could be good. It really could be. I don't think it's a horrible idea for a movie. The problem is that it's been done over and over again by the time you got to this movie in 1993, and then on top of that, we dumped it into a franchise on top of a franchise at that time called Friday the 13th. That wasn't anything like this. It didn't need to transform into anything like this. This was the most pre-Rian Johnson bullshit I've ever seen in my life. You know, and I mean that. I know a lot of people want to defend fucking Last Jedi, and I will hit on that every single time I even think mildly about the guy. Adam Marcus is the OG Rian Johnson. I stand by that as long as I live. Of this fucking guy saying, I wanted to subvert expectations, and then he just dumps on all the fans. And to this day, he will defend this shit. And I understand having passion for the movie you made, but even fucking Spielberg doesn't like many of the movies he made. Okay? And you can argue it's about being too involved, about knowing the flaws behind the scenes, about knowing arguments and cast member life stuff that you didn't want to know behind the scenes. You could say that behind the camera, that's what makes some of these people like Johnny Depp hate the movies they make and not want to watch them. You could say that, but then there's people like Adam Marcus and Rian Johnson who constantly blow themselves about how much they love their work. Adam Marcus, to this day, defends the shit out of this film and think it's one of the best Friday the 13th films, I think is what he said. The dude wasn't a fan. Just like Rian Johnson wasn't a Star Wars fan. I will hold on to that until the day I die. Fuck you if you disagree. That's harsh. I'm sorry. But I can't stand him. I think Adam Marcus is the most dickheadish dude I've ever seen in my life. Every interview I've ever seen with the guy, he just seems like a pretentious ass. I can't stand it. But anyway, I don't like him, obviously. I don't like the writing team involved here. I think the writing is horrible. Dean Lorey wrote it. He's involved with a lot of garbage that comes out nowadays, like that new cartoon Harley Quinn show. Why am I not surprised the guy involved with that wrote this shit with Adam Marcus? It's such a bad movie. The characters are not good at all. The tension you could have had with, like, having a baby stuck in this situation is used for maybe one scene, and that's it. There's a whole focus on this one diner that's kind of a throwback to, I believe, the diner from the original movie that Steve goes to, and I thought that was cool. But there's so much focus on it, it's done in such a goofy way. The whole film overall is goofy. Everything from the effects to the performances, everybody is so over the top in the film, including the one lady that works at the diner, that I think is supposed to be the lady from the original film, but I could be wrong, who cares? The performances are just so over the top. John D. LeMay is trying his best to be decent. I don't really think he's that good in here. Feels completely wasted in my opinion. And I hate to say that because people love him so much, but to me this is just a bad performance. And I don't entirely blame him. I blame directing and writing. But it's the same thing with Creighton Duke. Creighton Duke, the actor, tried his best to do what he could, and that's it. Kane Hodder is in the film for two different roles. He plays Jason, obviously. And by the way, the look of Jason here is awful. Truly awful. He looks like a fat piece of bubble gum that had a hockey mask, a very tiny hockey mask put on it. And then eventually that hockey mask over time just sunk into the gum. Yeah, Jason's mask is like a part of his head, like the skin grew over the mask. What the fuck is that? Who came up with this design? The idea is cool, but then like he has the little frizzles of hair left and his head is all bumpy like gum, like I said, like a brain. It's just bad. The whole design is bad. Kane Hodder, it's not a very flattering look. It makes him look super chubby. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I'm chubby too. I'm a big dude. I'm probably bigger than Kane Hodder, as a matter of fact. But what I would say is that I don't like the look of Jason. He looks fat. He looks goofy. He looks goofy. It looks like a costume. Matter of fact, I didn't know this when I was a kid, but there was a Jason Voorhees costume I wore for 2 different years. One for the Freddy vs. Jason costume, which is probably my personal favorite. Not of all the Jasons, but just of the costumes I wore. And then I had another one that looked familiar to me, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I dressed up as this probably when I was like 11, 10, 12, somewhere in there. For those 2 different years, I had 2 different Jason costumes. And the other costume that wasn't the Freddy vs. Jason costume, I couldn't figure out what it was. I thought it was just a generic, really cool looking mask from Friday the 13th, whatever, some kind of Jason. No, it was clearly a resprayed Part 9 mask, is what I'm seeing. the more I think about it. It's very clearly that, with the skin overgrown, the mask and everything. It's clearly what it was, but it had gray skin, not like the bubblegum pink color that Jason's skin is here. I hate the look of Jason. Anyway, back to Kane Hodder. He's barely in the film as Jason. I'm not going to say it's a good performance because he's barely in here. It's like Luke in Force Awakens. You know, he's there for like 5 seconds. He looks at you deeply and he goes, and then that's the end of Force Awakens. That's what I feel like Jason does here, aside from run after a couple of people, try to pull somebody in a hole. That's it. That's it. Let's see. What else could I go for? Oh, Kane Hodder also plays another character who's like a security guard in the mortuary, or wherever he is, the hospital, wherever they took Jason's body at the beginning. He was horrible there. He's not a very good speaking actor. He's a good physical performance as an actor. I really believe that when he plays Victor Crowley, when he plays Jason, he can typically do a really good job, in my opinion. A speaking role? No. No, no, no. I love Kane, but no. No. This is his worst performance as Jason, in my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. I don't really have anything else to say to anybody else. The relatives of Jason, the actresses that are playing them, they're okay. They don't really have the best writing. They don't have any actual character in their characters. I don't care. I don't care. The movie is so bad, I don't give a shit enough to even focus on that in my review. I'm sorry. I personally think Adam Marcus is not a talented director. But let me say this. If this film had come out and it was just another Friday the 13th formula, repurposed again, I think Adam Marcus would have been fine for it. But for this, let's make a straight-to-video weird-ass movie, no. This is the kind of thing that people like him should not make. You know, if Adam Marcus was making movies now, I'm surprised this hasn't happened yet, but he would probably be attached to something like The Asylum, in my opinion. Let's talk about the look of the film. I talked about, you know, the film feeling cheap with the music and everything. Harry Manfredini clearly didn't give a shit, or didn't have a budget, or they didn't give him enough money to be able to put some effort into that music. But the feel and the look of the movie are so cheap. It just feels like everything was the lowest scale they could have possibly done for everything. And it's sad to feel that way, but I feel that way. It looks ugly. It's just an ugly looking movie. All the sets and everything are just fugly, dude. I don't like it. I think it's just a bad movie overall. Pretty much everything about it is bad, except for the practical effects. The practical effects are a little goofy and a little silly. Clearly, to me, that's where all the budget went. There's a little bit of CGI lightning and stuff like that in the movie, and those are okay looking for 1993. But the practical effects, I think, are actually pretty cool, especially the kills. The kills typically look fantastic. There's this one scene where a body-hopped Jason elbows somebody in the mouth, and their whole mouth caved in. It looked fucking great. There's another scene about a guy basically dissolving, and it was great. That was shockingly one of the best deaths in Friday the 13th. There's some really good kills in the movie. Some that I could argue are some of the funniest and best of the entire series. There's some really horrific gore in the movie, and some really horrific things that happen with the body-hopping stuff in the third act. But the movie overall surrounding it, the idea for this, again, kind of a dead-eyed Jason, if you will, is just stupid. Just fucking stupid. I hate all of it. But the effects, they're good. I'll give them that. The kills, they're good. I'll give them that. They're effective, the way they're cut and everything. I don't know if that says the same thing for the R-rated cut, but for the unrated cut, like I said, what I watched, not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. I already talked about the music. It's horrible. I'm not going to talk about that again. That's pretty much my thought on Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, which is not the final Friday. This is the second final Friday that we've had, and it's also not the final movie, so we have like 3 other movies after this: Jason X, Freddy vs. Jason, and the remake. The remake doesn't count, I guess, but why does Jason X? Because Freddy vs. Jason ignored that one. Anyway, Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. It's a fucking mess, and I can't figure out if I like this more or do I like part 3 more. To me, the kills are better in here, and the kills are really the only 2 things I focus about this movie and that movie. And that's roughly it. I might like this more than part 3. I don't know. Part 3 bores the shit out of me. This isn't boring. This is just bad. Just bad overall. It's just a bad movie to watch. You get mad as you watch it as a big Friday fan. And I know people who love this. Surprisingly, one of the people I never thought I would hear like it is Rambo Raff for Life. One of my favorite YouTubers of all time. Been watching the guy for like 15 years. Or 10 years, whatever it was. Love the guy's content, and he loves this movie. It's like the first Friday film he ever saw, and I'm like, of all the movies the guy hates so much, and I understand why, because a lot of movies are really, really, really bad, especially nowadays. But stuff that I think he would like a lot of the time he ends up not liking, and then I see things like this and he says he likes it, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of shocking to me. But good for him, though. If you like Jason Goes to Hell, that's fine. That's fine. But this is one of those things that I feel like if this movie had come out, we'd have the same situation we had with, kind of like with Part 5 in the series, and the Last Jedi from Star Wars, of everybody being mad because there's shills out there trying to push that this movie is good. Not Sam Raimi for Life or anybody else is doing that with Jason Goes to Hell. Most of the fan base seems to be on the side of this is a bad movie. But I don't know. I don't know. It's horrible. It's really, really rough, man. If I had to rate Jason Goes to Hell the final Friday on a 5-star basis, I think I would give it probably... The kills are good, so I'm gonna really pump it up a little bit. I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5 stars. I think the kills in it really make it fun. Really, really fun. Really make it worthwhile for me personally. That's it. That's it. There's so much of Friday that's missing in this piece of shit movie that it's a shame. I can't believe that Sean S. Cunningham would just hand off this franchise that people loved to just some kid, some friend of your kids, you know? Here's that ugly looking Jason, by the way. Bubblegum Jason. Look at that deformed head. He looked like that guy from the Hills Have Eyes remake. Anyway, Jason Goes to Hell, final Friday, 2 out of 5 stars for me. What did you guys think about this movie? Do you love it? Do you hate it? I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments down in the comment section down below. And in case... I believe I forgot to mention this at the beginning of my review, and I'm not going to go back and review it again because I don't want to talk about this fucking turd of a movie. This collaboration I've been doing with the Friday Films was with a couple of gentlemen. One that started this whole thing, Stranger Grayson, and there's another fellow named Goosebumps Boy. Goosebumps Boy told me yesterday he probably won't be able to review some of the films after Part 8, so that's a shame. I was looking forward to his other reviews, but if you guys want to check out he and Grayson's channels, and I highly recommend both of them, you should look down in my description section. I have both of their links to their channels there. I recommend them. Really good guys, really great reviewers, love the content from both of them, and they've been big friends of mine, big supporters of my channels for a long time, and I really, really appreciate both of you, and I hope you guys will give them chances to impress you with their takes on movies and stuff. Really enjoy those guys. Really cool to talk to them. Really fun. Really glad I got a chance to do this collaboration with them, too. Like I said, we have like a few more movies left. I've already reviewed Freddy vs. Jason, so I just have Jason X and the remake. But I'm looking forward to those two, because I've always liked those two quite a bit. So we'll see. Anyway, that might be a controversial statement to say that I like the remake, but fuck you. Anyway, what do you guys think? Put your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you all for watching. God bless you guys, and goodbye. I missed the button. Damn it.